listeners. We have an inspiring guest for you on this episode. Travis Jordan is with us discussing his practices of implementing a caring and nurturing approach when teaching students. Travis Jordan is currently the superintendent of Beulah Public School District 27 in Beulah, North Dakota. He has been an educator for 14 years as a social studies teacher, principal of a middle school and a high school, and superintendent. Travis believes that his experiences in life, as well as education, have created a passion in him to inspire others. He feels that each person has a distinct purpose in life, and everyone has the ability to change the world. Through his writing and speaking, he hopes to ignite a similar passion for others. I'm glad to welcome to our podcast, Travis Jordan.
Well, we'd like to welcome Superintendent Travis Jordan to the podcast. Mr. Jordan, you're going to tell us a little bit about some social emotional learning that you have experienced with.
Sure, absolutely.
What are some examples that you've maybe utilized in the districts that you've worked in to be successful?
Well, I guess for starters, I think it's just important to acknowledge that social emotional learning is just as important as academic learning. And I think, from a standpoint of a school and once a teacher and administrator, that a lot of things come down to school districts, and they're all basically based on increasing test scores and student achievement. But I think we've entered into a world where those things are now secondary to kids' mental well-being. And so I just, for one, I guess just to kind of introduce myself a little bit through this, is that I'm a strong advocate for social emotional learning. I came from a district where it was a small district, and we had a student take their own life about a month and a half into the job. It was my first year as a principal, and that's when I decided that I was going to take this head on. And so within our district, we try to just encompass a couple different mentalities, I guess. We try to make sure that we put connect, and we're empathetic before we're apprehensive. I also encourage our teachers to live by the philosophy of invest before you test and reach before you teach. We believe that if we reach a kid through their heart, it's a lot easier to educate their mind. And so we just it's no curriculum. It's a mindset. It's a caring mindset. Is that every kid that comes through your district, you celebrate them. You celebrate their differences, their individualities. You get to know them. You hear their stories, because their stories are more important than their scores. And once we realize that and we hear their stories, their scores end up going up. So we just want to make sure we're connecting with kids before we're throwing content at them. And yeah, we're doing some things that is not rocket science, but I mean, we've taken a dive into personalized learning and allowing our students to own their learning, to bring their gifts into the classroom and use those gifts and wrap their gifts around the curriculum. Back in the day, in a lot of traditional schools, we take the curriculum and we try to wrap it around the kids. But the curriculum, you find that kids take learning to a whole new level. And so we're just trying to do that. I did with a few other superintendents in our governor's office a personalized diploma, and a lot of states, probably including many that are listening now, have one or two paths to a diploma. And if you truly personalize learning, and everybody has to fit into the same diploma box when it's all said and done, you really aren't personalizing that pathway for that child. And so we're trying to come up with ways for students to have a personalized path to a diploma. Of course, that takes higher education involved in the workforce education, but that's what we're supposed to do. And kids are supposed to take classes even though they're not going to want them or need them in the future. And we're under the idea that why not allow like a senior to take an internship their entire senior year where they're not even in school. Maybe they have a paid internship outside of school where they're earning school credit. So lots of things going on that we're maybe to encompass it all is educating the heart before we educate the mind, and in doing so, it's a lot easier to educate the mind. So that was a lot in one short couple minutes there, but.
Yeah, that sure was, but it sounds like you guys are doing a lot. So, and it went so quickly in that statement, but it seems like it's taken years for you to get to this point of where you guys are offering all of these resources and offering that personalized education for students.
Well, I think so. I think it's taken years for education in general to get to where we are, and you know, people have the mindset. You're in the education world. People have the mindset that this too shall pass. They're coming through our doors with mental illness, you know, and we're supposed to get them to achieve at high levels. I find that nearly impossible if we're just going to sit them at a desk and throw paper and worksheets in front of them and content them to death without connecting with them. And this, you know, even it dives into, you know, even you can talk about school shooting attacks. I mean, and that sort of thing. And I think the one thing that everybody craves, and it's not just kids in this world, adults, is connection. And I'm under the belief that the more we lift other people up, the less that are going to get knocked down. And instead of arming our teachers with guns, let's arm our kids with hope. You know, and I just think it's so important that we touch on that social emotional side of learning. And it doesn't even stop in the school district. I mean, you just watch the world around us. I mean, look at the TV and see what's going on in the world. They always said it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a village. And you know, I said last night on Twitter, I think on one of my Twitter posts, I said, I'm kind of going off all over the place here, but I said on my Twitter post that the phrase that we commonly say is kids nowadays. Actually, something that I hear more often now is adults nowadays. And so, you know, this is a whole societal thing, and it's not just education, but I think that the greatest asset in our world is our kids. And if we can invest in our kids and give them hope that that when they become adults in this world, they can reciprocate that to their kids, and we can fix the problems of the world through our kids right now. So.
Yeah, definitely, because it takes us educating the current generation to make the next few generations, to make an impact on those generations.
Absolutely.
How can you talk a little bit about your teaching staff and how your teaching staff has embraced the social emotional learning aspect of this and embracing, you know, teaching the child in order to reach the child?
Absolutely. So one thing that we do with our teachers right off the bat, every year we bring them in first day of school and we say, hey, look, you are allowed to do whatever you want in your classroom. You can take as many risks as you want. You're allowed to step outside your comfort zone. You are allowed to do that, and you won't get judged on your evaluation for doing it as long as it's legal and moral. They're allowed to do whatever they want to do in their classrooms. And so we start there. We give our teachers complete autonomy in their classrooms to do the things that they think benefits kids the most. And from there, we've embraced the Alveus Bullying Prevention Program. I'm not sure if a lot of people out there know what that is, but we've embraced that, and we've kind of made it into our own, where twice a month, I believe it is, twice a month, our kids are embraced in conversations of the issues that they're facing every day with adults in the room, and they talk about those things. We've also partnered with our local health coalition, and we are actually bringing a licensed psychologist, clinical psychologist to the school that meets with kids right here at the school instead of them having to go to the clinic for it. So we've embraced a partnership with them to embrace the social emotional side and the mental health side. But other than that, like I said, it's not a curriculum. It's nothing that you have to buy. It's kneeling down next to that kid and putting your arm on their shoulder and saying, hey, what's going on today? How are you feeling today? And having those conversations with kids. And, if you make a kid feel like they matter, they're going to want to come to school. If they're going to want to come to school, they're going to do well. we tell our teachers that it's more important to find their passion than it is to find their grade. Because once you find their passion, their grade will take care of itself. So those are some of the things we're doing. I mean, I know it's kind of a broad thing, but I mean, loving on kids and making sure they feel appreciated. Like I said, it's not rocket science. And a lot of times we think we're doing it, but we're not. We're not. It's the kids are walking through our hallways every day and we think they're fine. Teachers are walking through our hallways every day and we think they're fine. Everybody's got a story. And we just need to take some time to listen to it and help our kids find their passion.
Yeah, I know. I just saw a little girl in the hallway the other day, and she's walking through, and I hadn't seen her a whole lot this year, so she may be a new student. And she just walked by me twice that day, and I said, that girl just seems awful quiet. And you know, sometimes the kids in the hallways, our school, are just real busy. They're moving, they're chatting it up with their friends, and they're, you know, excited to get to go somewhere to the next class. And then so this little girl is real quiet, and I was standing by the lunch line the other day, or the day after that, and I started talking to her, and I just didn't know, you know, what her story was. But through that start of that conversation, we'll start to figure out what her story is. And it's just, you know, just how many more of those kids have walked by that just didn't catch my eye. And that's the part of it, is that we have a whole teaching staff and we have hundreds of kids in our schools. It's just, you know, how many of those kids just make it through 4 years and move on and don't ever really make that connection
Right.
with anybody there. And that's the tough
Right.
part.
It absolutely is the tough part. I mean, I can think of many situations, and I was one of those kids when I was in school. I was the kid that was an athletic kid, fairly popular kid, but people didn't realize that I was struggling from depression, and I had high anxiety, and not one person would have known that. I experienced bullying as the correct definition of bullying in school. I mean, I went through school and I hated it, and I reached rock bottom myself, and so you know, it's not just the kids that are sitting alone at a table. Every kid, there's something. We tend to judge people by their flesh, and we see people with our eyes, but we fail to see people with our hearts. And so I'm currently writing a book right now, and I don't have a title for it yet, but I'm almost done with the book. But it's about educating the heart and not the mind. But it talks about that. That we just need to be real, and we need to be human with people. I had a kid in my office the other day, and he was just he was down on himself, and I finally got to the fact that he was too afraid to take his anxiety medication. And I just looked at him, because he didn't want that stigma, and I just looked at him and I said, man, I take anxiety medication every single day. I'm a superintendent of this district, and look, I'm not afraid to admit it, but if I don't take my anxiety medication, it's tough for me to get through the day. I suffer from depression too, and it's almost like a light bulb went off, and he just thought, you know what, it's okay, you know. And so, you know, the best thing we can be with our kids is human, instead of always having to put that teacher hat on and fake it. I mean, they say fake it till you make it. I say just be real. Don't fake anything till you make anything. If you're having a bad day and you're down, and your kids see that, they see that it's okay that even a teacher has a bad day, and it helps them get through life just a little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. And kids can tell when you're being real with them and when you're not. They tend to respond better. They tend to relate better when they know that you're being real and you're being honest with them, as opposed to just showing up and teaching some curriculum to them.
Right. Absolutely.
How about your community members? How does your community, your local stakeholders, how have they embraced this social emotional aspect of the education?
Right. I find it hard for communities not to embrace it. I mean, we're telling our parents that we're going to celebrate your child. We're gonna allow your child to use their gifts and talents in the school, and use them in every classroom. I found as a superintendent that the more I communicate with my community members, the better. And I over communicate. I'm often sending emails 3-4 times a week to every single parent in our district. And granted, we have 740 kids in our district, but and that's small compared to the rest of the world. But in North Dakota, that's actually a fairly big school. But we communicate constantly. I share put Facebook posts out where I'm in front of a camera, and we just talk about how education is changing and how we are going to do our best just to celebrate their kid. And there's not one parent that's going to say, "Oh, I don't want you to celebrate my kid." And so obviously our community has embraced that. And the more we do it, the more trust they'll have with us and within the school district of doing that. And so it's been good. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. I know that I worked at a school district and started a Twitter account at that district, and then just started to share out the positives that was happening at that school. And then, parents would come by and have that conversation with me, tell me that they appreciate seeing those good things of the kids in the school and just the entire district just being out there and just being shared, because parents, especially of a small community, they really enjoy being part of the school community, and the school is the center of the hub of a lot of local small communities. So it's a great thing when we start to share those positive aspects of the education.
And that's something that we did. I don't know what your media stations are like out in your area, but we have media stations that do whistleblower campaigns, and the whole idea is to catch people doing bad things or to find something negative. And so we started our own whistleblower campaign last year where we blow the whistle on the positive. And so I have people that come into my office, and we put a big poster up, and then we put them in the poster, and we say what they were doing great, and we post it all over social media. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to celebrate people. But number two, I wanted to show the media in this world that, hey, it's okay to show positive things that are happening. I mean, I know that negative news sells, but I wanted to give them the whole impression that positive news can heal. And there are some news organizations in the state of North Dakota that embrace this whistleblower campaign for negativity. And negativity breeds negativity. And so we just started showering the positives, and I'd send it to the news stations, and one actually came out and covered it for us. But what a great opportunity for me to visit with people that were doing great things in our district that I had never talked to before. I'll sit down and talk to them, and a half hour later they leave, and we had a great conversation. I take their picture, and then I celebrate them all over our social media platforms. So that's something we did here in Beulah as well, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think? What do you think the next steps are for the school district with the social emotional learning?
Well, honestly, we're just trying to revamp. We're trying to ramp up, I guess, our behavioral mental health program that I talked about just a little bit earlier, with getting our health coalition and our clinics involved. We don't have the dollars to employ, more than one counselor. We have a counselor, and we have 3 counselors in our district, one for our middle school, one for elementary, one for high school, and we just don't have the dollars to employ any more than that. And so we're just trying to think of ways in which we can get these kids more help. And so, like I said, we're just going to continue to partner with our local screening right off the bat, and go from there. But after that, it's moving into a completely personalized classroom setting where you might see grade levels go away. You might see kids that are not necessarily in classrooms during the day, but maybe they're out doing internships. And so that's not something that can happen overnight for sure, but it's something that we're taking small steps toward. And so eventually we hope to get there.
Yeah, definitely. I worked in a school that would have a vocational program, a career tech program, and some of the students that were part of that had finished their high school curriculum for the most part. They would just show up a couple hours in the morning, do their schoolwork, and then they were working basically full time in the afternoon and the evening.
Right.
And it was like a paid internship. They were getting some really great experience, and it was basically from what they had learned at the school through the career tech program, maybe a year and a half, and then they were, because they were on track to graduate on time, they could go get that paid internship, and
that helps them pay for college. I mean, it just kills a lot of birds with one stone there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe you could highlight on just one final question here. If you had one piece of advice for a new teacher what would that piece of advice be?
I wish I had this advice when I started teaching, but I just think the number one thing a teacher can be in a school district, like I mentioned earlier, is human. You know, when I first became a principal, when I was going through my classes to be a principal, I don't know how many times I was told that my job was to be a principal and not a principal. And they said, don't be a principal. Well, I can't think that be further from the truth. I mean, I think the best thing that I can be for kids is a pal. And so my best advice is for teachers is that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be absolutely difficult. It's challenging, but yet it's rewarding. And that you don't have to put a teacher hat on every single day into the classroom. Yes, you need to be professional, but you also need to be relational. And it's okay to share your story with your kids. It's okay to struggle to get out of bed. It's okay to fail in front of your students. It's not okay to quit, but it's okay to be real, and it's okay to be human. And so my best piece of advice, and I tell our teachers this all the time, like I said, they have full autonomy in their classrooms to step outside their comfort zones. I've always said this, and I'm kind of going off tangent again, but if we were all confined to our comfort zones, this world would be completely uncomfortable, to be honest with you. And so I tell our teachers to do something uncomfortable every single day, and if you look crazy doing it, awesome. Kids will embrace that, and kids will try something too, and they will take risks, and slowly but surely we'll change the world doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I do know that if students notice that the teacher is trying something different and it doesn't go perfectly, I sense that the kids usually pick up on that kind of thing, and they just kind of roll with it too. And then I think that kind of builds that foundation for, failures moving
Right.
forward still.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate your time tonight, and where can, if somebody's interested in contacting you or connecting with you, where would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, I have a blog at tjordan.org. That's one place you can find my blog, and I love Twitter. It's probably the best thing that I've found professionally. And I'm at Twitter at SUPT_Jordan, Soup Jordan. By any means, I love learning with people. So if people want to get in touch there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll link all that information in the show notes too. And you said you have a book coming out without a title, so you want to plug that a little bit?
Well, I wrote a book and then I threw it away, and then I wrote a book and I threw it away, and now I'm on my third one. And I just, because I was insecure about it, but now I've written it, and I've got some endorsements for it, and I guess I've got a couple chapters left to write, and it's been edited, and so I can see the light at the end of the tunnel with it, but I go back and forth on a title. So yeah, you'll see it all over my Twitter stream, I'm sure, once it comes out. But it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but it's been one of the most rewarding as well. And so I'm excited for it. I'm only going to do it one time. I'm not going to write another one. One is enough. And if my mom's the only one that reads it, then my mom's the only one that reads it, and I can still say I did it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing that out, and we'll be following the timeline to see when it comes out. So, well, I appreciate everything tonight, and we'll catch you around on Twitter and other social media.
Sounds good. Appreciate you having me. Have a good rest of the school year.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.